You're not going to believe this. Even now, months later, I still think about that night. I replay it in my head like a scene from a story I never expected to be part of. It started out simple, like most unexpected things do. My name is Carolyn. I'm 53. I've lived a quiet life. Married young. Raised a wonderful son. Worked part-time at the local library. Baked more banana bread than anyone should in one lifetime. For me, love had always meant stability. Routine. Comfort. Nothing wild. Nothing mysterious. And I told myself I was okay with that. That surprises were for books and movies, not for women like me. But then one evening, when the house was still, and everything felt familiar and safe, something happened. Something I never thought would happen to someone like me. It was a Saturday in early October, the kind of evening where the air carries a little bite, and the light fades faster than you expect. The kind of night that gently reminds you summer is gone. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My son Daniel was out at the movies with his friends. My husband was away again on a work trip. Nothing new. His absence had become a sort of background noise in our lives. I was curled up on the couch in my favorite oversized cardigan, sipping a cup of chamomile tea. The TV was on, but I wasn't really watching. Instead, I was flipping through old photo albums, something I do more often than I'd like to admit. Smiling at pictures of Daniel with his crooked little grin, missing teeth, silly Halloween costumes. Then one photo caught my eye: Daniel and his best friend Evan, proudly holding a lopsided Lego tower. They must have been 7 or 8. Just kids. I was lost in that memory when the doorbell rang. I thought maybe Daniel had forgotten his key. But when I opened the door, it wasn't my son. It was Evan. He stood there on the porch, taller now, broader, hands tucked into the pockets of a hoodie. The porch light cast a soft glow on his face. He looked older, no longer the boy from the photo. There was something in his posture, tight, tense. His expression was serious, not casual. This wasn't a drop-by kind of visit. Evan, everything okay? I asked, stepping aside. Hi, Mrs. Cole, he said with a shy smile. Sorry to show up like this. I didn't know where else to go. There was something in his voice that made me open the door without a second thought. Come in, sweetheart. You're always welcome here. He stepped inside, and as he passed me, I caught a whiff of something, maybe cologne, maybe just the crisp scent of fall. We sat down in the living room. I brought him a cup of tea, though he didn't drink it, just held it with both hands, like he was trying to warm up from the inside out. I sat across from him and studied him, his jawline, the bit of scruff, the way his eyes looked tired, distant. Daniel's not home, I said gently, unsure if that changed anything. I know, Evan replied after a pause. I didn't come to see him. That caught me off guard. I blinked. Oh. He took a deep breath and stared down at the cup in his hands. My parents are fighting again. It's bad this time. I just needed somewhere quiet. I nodded, my heart softening. I remembered that feeling, needing somewhere that felt steady when everything else felt like it was falling apart. You're always safe here, I said. He looked up at me then, and something about the way his eyes met mine made my breath catch. There was gratitude in his gaze, but something else, something I couldn't quite read. Thanks, he murmured. You always made this place feel like home. I smiled and reached over to give his hand a gentle squeeze meant to comfort him the way a mother would. But the moment our hands touched, something shifted. He didn't pull away, and neither did I. For a second, the room felt completely still. Quiet. Heavy. I slowly pulled my hand back, unsure of what I was feeling. Maybe I imagined the spark. Maybe I was just lonely. and he was just a young man looking for comfort, but my heart was beating faster. I stood up, mostly to ground myself. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" I asked. "I made a roast earlier. There's plenty." He smiled. That same soft, grateful smile. "Yeah," he said. "That sounds nice." As I walked into the kitchen, I caught our reflection in the sliding glass door. Me setting out plates. Him still sitting there, watching quietly. It looked so normal. But it felt different. Like something had shifted ever so slightly. I told myself I was reading too much into it. That it was just Evan. Sweet, respectful Evan. The boy who used to call me Miss C and leave muddy footprints on my clean floors. But deep down, I knew it wasn't the same anymore. But a part of me, a quiet awakening part, wondered if tonight would be different, and if I was ready for what that meant. Dinner was quieter than I expected. I placed 2 plates on the kitchen table, roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and lit a small candle out of habit. I didn't usually bother when I was alone, but something about even buying there made me want to create a sense of comfort, of calm. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like I was someone who could hold the world still for just a moment. He ate slowly, politely, occasionally glancing up from his potato, thank me or make a soft comment. Wetticked about safe things at first. His classes, Daniel's usual antics, football season, but under all of it, I felt that invisible thread tightening, pulling us closer, not physically, but in understanding. "You always cook like this?" he asked, gesturing to the plate. I smiled, sipping from my glass, only when I need to feel normal. He nodded like he understood. "Yeah, I get that." For a while, we just listened to the wind brush against the windows. The air was still warm from the oven, the kind that wraps around your shoulders like a blanket. But inside me, there was something else. Not warmth exactly, but anticipation. After we finished, I started clearing the dishes, and Evan followed, insisting on helping. I handed him a towel while I washed, and for a few minutes it felt like we were playing house. Domestic, simple, quiet. But then his hand brushed mine when I passed him a wet plate, and both froze for a split second. I looked up. So did he. The room was still, save for the soft clink of water drops into the sink. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what?" "I didn't know." He paused, then added, "Maybe for making this weird." I turned off the faucet, drying my hand slowly. "It's not weird, not unless we make it." He set the plate down and leaned slightly against the counter. High eyes searched mine for something. He wasn't sure what. "I didn't plan to come here," he said after a moment. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not confusion, just an undeniable awareness that I wasn't just a host tonight. He wasn't just someone's mother or wife. I was Carolyn, a woman who hadn't felt really seen in years. I swallowed. "You've grown up so much, Evan." He smiled a little shyly. "So have you." I let out a breath of disbelief, shaking my head. "Oh, please. I'm over 50. You're barely out of college." He tilted his head. "That doesn't mean I didn't see you." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Maybe because it had been so long since someone said something like that to me. Without judgment, without pretense, he asterisk me. Not just the role it played, not just Daniel's mom, but me. A part of me, the part that had stayed quiet for too long, stirred. "I don't know what this is," I admitted, leaning against the opposite counter, "or what you're thinking. But you have to understand this isn't something I've ever considered." "I know," he said. "I didn't come here with a plan. I feel safe around you." and I wanted to be near someone who made him feel real. His words lingered in Thea, delicate and sharp at the same time. I turned to face the window, watching shadows dance across the backyard, got the reflection of Evan behind me. His arms crossed, head lowered slightly, made the moment feel even more fragile. "I should get going," he said quietly, "before this turns into something we can take back." I didn't stop him. Booty didn't ask him to leave either. Instead, I simply nodded. "Let me at least pack you some leftovers." He stood in the kitchen doorway. As he scooped food into a Tupperware, my back to him, hands shaking ever so slightly. When I turned to hand it to him, our fingers touched again, and this time the tension didn't feel accidental. It felt chosen. His eyes held mine longer than they should. "Have good night, Mrs. Cole." My throat watery. "Good night, Ivana. And just like that, he was gone. I closed the door, leaned against it, and closed my eyes. The silence of the house now felt different. Heavier somehow. Not lonely exactly, but charged as if the walls themselves were holding into. What had just happened or nearly happened? I stood there for a long time, hand still resting on the doorknob, and all I could think was, why did Ewan him to come back? The next morning, I moved through the house like I was sleepwalking. The coffee brewed. The sunlight poured through the kitchen window. The radio hummed soft jazz in the background. Everything felt normal. And yet nothing did. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting Evan to be standing there again. Hoodie pulled tight, eye seeking for comfort. But the hours passed, and the knock never came. Daniel returned home in the afternoon, laughing as he told me about the movie and the late-night diner run with his friends. He mentioned Evan briefly, something about him leaving early, not feeling well. I played along, nodding at right moments, but my mind was caught in the tangle of what had happened the night before. Or maybe it was what almost asterisk happened that haunted me more. By evening, I couldn't sit still. I walked through the house picking up things that didn't need picking up, folding already folded laundry, reorganizing spices I'd memorized years ago. My heart felt like a kettle left on the stove, low and simmering, always on the edge of boiling over. Around 8 p.m., the phone buzzed. A message asterisk even asterisk. Asterisk K, can I stop by for a minute? Won't stay long. Asterisk. I stare at it for longer than I should have, reading it over and over, like it was written in some foreign language. Mithams hovered over the screen. Me. Asterisk. Sure, I'm home. I didn't have time to change out of the old sweater I was wearing. I didn't light a candle or straighten the cushions or run a brush through my hair. Just stood there by the door until he heard his car pull into the driveway. Heck knocked gentler this time. When I opened it, he looked the same, but something in his eyes had changed. He looked more sure of himself, and yet still waiting for permission to speak. I shouldn't have come last night, he said, his voice low. But I'm not sorry I did. I let that hang between us before stepping aside. Come in. He walked in slowly, like he wasn't sure how welcome he really was. I've been thinking, he continued, stopping in the middle of the living room. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. That's the last thing you want. But something's been growing inside me for a long time, and I didn't even realize it until last night. I stayed quiet. The walls felt closer than usual. My heart thudded loud in my chest. When I was younger, I always noticed how warm you were, how patient, how you looked at people like they mattered. I don't think I knew what that meant back then, but I do now. Even I started, but my voice caught. I know this is complicated, he said quickly, and I know you're married, and I respect that. I swear I do, but I also think we both felt something last night. I turned away from him, staring down at the fireplace mantel. The framed photos of Daniel, the souvenir snow globe from our family trip to Maine. I suddenly felt like I was being pulled in two different directions, each equally real, equally heavy. I've lived half my life for other people, I said quietly. For Daniel, for me husband, for this house, this routine. I'm not saying I regret it, but somewhere along the way, I forgot I was allowed to feel something. For me, asterisk. He stepped closer, not touching me, just standing there quietly, patiently. You didn't imagine it, he said. I felt it too. And I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know. The next few moments passed in silence, but they were louder than anything I'd heard all day. I don't know what to do with this, I admitted. This isn't something I PL and Ned. It's not even something I understand yet. You don't have to understand it right now, he said. You just have to let yourself feel it. I turned around slowly and looked at him. Really looked at him. The boy I used to make sandwiches for now. A man standing in front of me with honesty in his voice. And something deeper in his eyes. The space between us felt smaller now. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. I need time, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. Then I'll wait. And just like the night before, he left without asking for anything more. But this time, when the door clicked shut, I didn't feel conflicted. I felt alive. The days that followed were quiet, but not in the way they were said to be. It was the kind of quiet that thumbed with awareness, a constant thrum just beneath the surface. I moved through my routines as usual. Grocery shopping, tittying the house, answering mails. But everything felt a little different. Lighter somehow, and heavier too. I couldn't stop thinking about Evan. Not in a reckless romantic way, not entirely. It was deeper than that. It was the way he'd looked at me without judgment. The way his presence had peeled back a layer I didn't even know he'd built around myself. I'd spent years dimming my own light so others could shine. And suddenly, someone had noticed. I didn't tell anyone. Not Daniel, not my sister. Not neighbor who always managed to catch me at the mailbox with the late neighborhood gossip. I kept it close, like a fragile secret I wasn't ready to unpack yet. But I knew I had to do something. One afternoon, I found myself driving without thinking, my hands on the wheel moving as if they already knew where to go. I ended up in the old park where I used to take Daniel and Ian when they were little, the one with the faded swings and the duck pond that always smelled faintly of algae. I parked and sat on a bench under the big elm tree that still stood strong in the center. I pulled out my phone. For a while, I just stared at the blank message screen. Then I typed asterisk asterisk me, asterisk 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 in here if you want to talk. Same benches and park asterisk. He didn't reply right away, and for a moment I considered driving home. But before I could start the engine, I saw his car pull into the lot. He walked toward me with calm, deliberate steps. He wasn't smiling. He looked serious, and I appreciated that. This wasn't about chasing something fleeting. It was about facing something real. He sat down beside me, leaving just enough space to breathe, but not enough to feel distant. I didn't expect to hear from you, he said softly. I've been thinking, I replied, about everything. About what it means to be seen. About what it means to want something and not feel ashamed of it. He looked at me with those same eyes, kind, steady, open. I didn't come here with answers, I said. I just came here to be honest. He waited. I care about you even. But I also care about the life I've built. My marriage. It's not broken, but it's been quiet for a long time, too long. And maybe that silence made room for something that shouldn't have been there. Or maybe it made me realize I've been silent too. He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. I'm not going to act on what we felt. Not in the way we thought we might, I continued. But that doesn't mean I'm going to pretend it never happened either. A gust of wind stirred the leaves above us. For a while, neither of us spoke. I understand, he said finally, and I'm glad you told me. I never wanted to cause trouble in your life. I wanted you to know that you matter. I blinked hard. That sentence nearly undid me. I forgot what it felt like to hear that, I said. We sat for a while watching a pair of children toss breadcrumbs to ducks in the pond. The air smelled like earth and old memories. I don't regret coming to your house that night, he said quietly. Neither do I replied. But I think what we needed from each other wasn't about romance. It was about being seen, being valued, even if just for a moment. He turned to me. Then I'm glad I could give you that. I smiled, and this time it didn't feel complicated. It felt peaceful. When we stood to leave, he gave me a long, warm hug, the kind that says goodbye without regret. I watched him walk away, not with longing, but with clarity. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea. No television, no photo albums, just me and the quiet. But this time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. And for the first time, in a long while, I felt like a woman who could begin again. Not because of what happened, but because of what he'd remembered about myself through it. I am still Carolyn, and I'm still